2021, baby! New year, new me! Okay, not really. I mean, I haven't even done my 2020 best of albums yet. How am I supposed to move on to a new year if I haven't even done my best ofs yet? Hello, welcome to Red Chair Reviews. Fred Whitaker Jr., thank you for joining me. My top 10 albums of 2020, a year of turmoil, but a year of a lot of great music. So, these are the 10 albums that I think will stay in my rotation probably for the rest of my life. I love them, I will go back to them and revisit them, and hopefully if you haven't heard them yet, maybe you'll check them out too. So let's get this going. At number 10, we have the 11th studio album from Swedish metal band Catatonia. This album is called City Burials, and it is a monster. It is slow, plodding, heavy. It does have some driving moments at times, but I think it's their best album since 2003's Viva Emptiness. There's a lot of great songs on here. Untrodden is one that stands out for me. It's like they found a new lease on life. They took a one-year hiatus, 2018, and I was like, uh-oh, there's the end of Catatonia. But no, they come back in 2020 stronger than they've been in a long, long time. It's my number 10, and it is definitely worth many listens. Snarling. Joe Talbot, the singer of the band Idols, is snarling. My number 9 album comes from Idols, the UK band. They've been together since 2009. They didn't start releasing albums until 2017 for some reason. They were just doing a bunch of EPs and playing live shows. But man, this 5-piece from Bristol is powerful. They've got a lot to say. There's something really just driving, abrasive, grating about this album. It debuted at number 1 in the UK. It got up to number 54 in the charts here. So Ultramono found some success in the US, but they had an album called Brutalism in 2017, which I went back and listened to, and it is excellent. They also have an album called Joy as an Act of Resistance from 2018, which is even better. Songwriting growth, but I think really here Ultramono is the band at their best. Maybe Model Village, this song a lot of people have heard, but for me, there's a song on here called Grounds, which I think is probably the best song I've heard this year. If you haven't heard Idol's Grounds yet, go listen to that song. It's infectious and heavy, and it just really has something to say. But yeah, this is a band that I found this year. Somehow they've escaped me for all these years, and I'm glad that I happened upon them, and I think that you'll enjoy them. There's something to be said about a band or an artist that sticks around for a long time, and a lot of the bands that are on my list this year, they've been here for a while. Kirk Windstein, although this is his first solo album, he's been the lead man for Crowbar now for 30 years. They've put out 11 studio albums as Crowbar. This is his first solo venture, and I have to say, it really has a nice, slow and plodding, melodic feel. I don't know if he could put this out as a Crowbar album. I know he did it as a solo thing because he didn't know how Crowbar fans would react to it if it was called Crowbar, but to me it feels like a more melodic Oddfellows Rest, which is my favorite Crowbar album. So I don't think that there's anything wrong if he had released this as a Crowbar record, per se. But I'm interested to see if he goes back to more of the heavier driving stuff that Crowbar does. Is he going to keep that NOLA heavy sound going? Or is he going to go further down this path of his more melodic solo work? But I must say this album, Dream in Motion, is definitely a collection of great songs. Tunes like Necropolis and The World You Know, those are songs that really stand out to me. Also, as a side note, Kirk Windstein, I met him recently at a show in Pittsburgh a couple years ago. I met him multiple times. I've even gotten to open for his band in the Naya Bingy, the famed Naya Bingy in Youngstown. And Crowbar really is a band that is fronted by one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the scene. Down to earth, really honest and straightforward, just a genuine good dude. So if you haven't heard Kirk Windstein's stuff with Crowbar, you want to dig back a bit, but this solo album is a great place for you to really find the more emotional and I'd say a little more melodic side of what he can do. At number 7, we have my favorite shirt that I ran into this year said that this band is Horny Corn, and I just think that's the greatest thing I've ever heard. So Deftones, otherwise known as Horny Corn, boy, their album Ohms is really, really good. The best thing they've done since White Pony. Chino Moreno and crew, Abe Cunningham's drums are so good on this album. Everything about this effort is just them finding this new drive. Chino Moreno's lyrics are as sharp as they've ever been. This might be lyrically his best album that he's ever been a part of. And I know he does a ton of side projects, but I really think that this album is him writing some of his best stuff. It reached number 5 on the UK and US charts. This is a band that's been around for a long time. I got to see them open for Pantera years ago and was instantly impressed by their first record. And I really kind of went with them the entire time. But I just think the last couple albums have felt a little flat at times. And I think that Ohms is them just being re-energized, and there's something great about that. I've seen them called shoegaze. I don't really think this is shoegaze. I think maybe they've kind of gone with that label, some people, because they don't want to call them like new metal, because new metal is not really, because they're not really doing new metal anymore. I've heard them called a heavier Radiohead. I think Horny Corn is still my favorite, so I'm going to stick with that one. The middle of this album is the strongest for me. There's a song called Error and The Spell of Mathematics. Those two songs back to back are really good. I just feel like this album kind of like crescendos to the middle, and then it stays pretty steady, but a great band and a great album. Number 6, if you had to pick one band on this list that I think is going to be exciting for a long time, it would be this band, Zeal and Ardor. Their new EP, I know it's an EP, it's only 17 minutes long. Why is it on this list? It's only 6 songs. Because they're so good. The 6 songs are so good. I think that the band has found a voice. They started out in New York. I believe they've moved to Switzerland now. But listen to what these guys combine. They combine black metal and extreme metal with African-American hymnals, gospel, blues. I know it sounds crazy, and it is. It's just as crazy, but somehow it works. I really enjoy it a lot, and I think you will too. I didn't think their first couple full lengths really sound quality did them justice. I saw them live a few years ago with Deaf Heaven, and I really thought they delivered. One of my favorite opening bands I've ever seen. Even with 6 songs all being great, I can pick 2 favorites. Vigil is probably the best song on the album. It's haunting, and it sticks in your mind for a long time. And then At the Seams is also very powerful. The cover of this album, you have to see it. It's probably sitting here next to me. It's kind of like police batons and this upside-down cross thing. This is the album of oppression. This is the album that I think, it's called Wake of a Nation, and I think it really does that. I think it kind of exemplifies a lot of the oppression and I know that they're not necessarily based here anymore, but being from New York, I think that there's definitely that connection to the struggle that's going on right now, and I think it gives a voice to that. Never Too Extreme has equal parts extremity and melody, has that that wonderful gospel bluesy sound that's woven throughout every song masterfully. So if you haven't heard Zeal and Ardor, this is a great place to start with them because I think this album finds them at their best. At number 5, it's the almighty Lamb God. Okay, I'm overselling it a little bit. Lamb God's really good, though. I always thought they were kind of like the heir apparent to Pantera years ago when they first started playing. This is their 8th album, and it's self-titled. I don't always love when a band goes with a self-titled thing, especially like STP, who has now 2 self-titled albums. Meh. I don't know about that, but I think that this one is justified. I must say that when I knew that Chris Adler had left the band, I was like, what are they going to do? But no worries. Art Cruz came through, delivers, maybe even better than what Chris Adler was doing the last couple albums. I hate to say that. I haven't loved the last couple albums that Lamb of God put out. They've been good, but this one's really solid. And maybe it's just because this hunger for political ideals that I've got going on right now. I'm just kind of really driven by this political mindset that's going on. And Randy Blythe has done a wonderful job here of delivering the American struggle vocally. He even sings about the American scream in one of my favorite songs, which is New Colossal Hate, one of the strongest titles on the album. Checkmate, also one of the first singles off the album, very good as well. Maybe it's just because Sturm und Drang, their last album, which came out in 2016, was all about Randy's struggles and being in jail for a while and his fears. They were very personal, which I think worked at some points. But this album has more of a universal appeal. And I think that they're really taking on this American thrash metal thing. I think they're taking it to heart because it sounds like the voice of what I think a lot of Americans are thinking. In a time of confusion, anger, sorrow, sadness, this album seems to encompass all of those things and puts it together in this very powerful and aggressive package. We are at number 4, Mon the Biffy Clyro. I love Biffy Clyro. It's my wife's favorite band, I would say, and I really enjoy them quite a bit. They are huge overseas. In the UK, this is their 3rd album in a row that debuted at number 1 on the charts. They head up Glastonbury. They do all these things. And then I saw them a couple years ago in Columbus in a bar that held like 150 people. Biffy Clyro is not known here on American shores. I don't know why. They're one of the best rock bands in the world. And this album, A Celebration of Endings, proves it. The band consists of Simon Neil, who's a powerful singer and an amazing guitar player. And he's also backed up by 2 twin brothers, Ben and James Johnston. And that three-piece really works together to deliver some amazing music. They had an album in 2012, Opposites. It was a double album. It was my favorite album that year. And that's really where I started really getting snagged in by the band. But there's just so many great songs on this album. And Dove is one of the ones that I loved right away. But for me, Space, it's a ballad. It's this power ballad. And I think that if there's a song that I know I'm going to grow older, still loving from this year, it's probably going to be Biffy Clyro's Space. There's also a song that ends the album, which is crazy, called Cop Syrup. Scottish people are saying that they're having trouble asking for that song to be played by like one of their speaker systems, Cop Syrup. But it's pretty cool. Also, another great band that did a wonderful live stream this year during the pandemic. So if you didn't see them perform this album in that live stream, go check it out. You won't be disappointed. Biffy Clyro is a band to keep your eye on. I know that all of the UK is, and we should be too. Woo, top 3, baby. Top 3. Dark shoegaze band from Philadelphia, Nothing, returns with another wonderful album. This is their 4th full length. I really thought the last one, Dance on the Blacktop, was disappointing. I talked with a friend of mine, Jake Johnson, who runs a nice label called Future Vampire Club. Check out that record label if you've not done it. They're just getting started. But we both kind of felt as though their last album, their 3rd album, was disappointing. Just something about it didn't quite stay with me. Guilty of Everything, their 1st full length, was wonderful. Tired of Tomorrow, their 2nd album, was probably my favorite album of theirs. I still think that I slightly prefer that over this new one. But The Great Dismal is just that. It is great and it is dismal. It has these long, drawn-out elements of these ambient drones that make this band so wonderful. They deliver live. And I can't tell if this or my number 1 is the most cohesive album of the year. This entire album just feels like it fits together perfectly. I don't think even if you change the order of the songs that it would work as well. April Haha, Bernie Sanders, these are 2 songs that really stand out, but the entire album is excellent. Find Nothing, listen to all 4 of their albums, even Dance on the Blacktop, which isn't my favorite of theirs. It's still a good album, but the other 3, including this new one, are ones that you definitely have to check out. I've literally been tortured between these 2 albums. Since I first heard them, I've just like re-listening and they're both so good. My number 2 and number 1, I almost want to put them in a tie, but that would not be cool, man. That's not kosher. You got to pick a number 1, don't you? So I decided at number 2 this year, it is Fetch the Bolt Cutters from Fiona Apple. I listened to this album and reviewed it on my own YouTube channel when it first came out. And right away, I was plowed over by how empowering this album is. I don't feel like it's necessarily empowering for me. I feel like it's something about it that screams just this idea of independence for the women of the world. I can find elements of my own struggles in there and connect them to that. It's not too difficult to do. However, the album is so personal from Fiona, I feel like this is maybe her most personally written album. Think about how tough it must be. 1996, she was only 17 when her first album dropped, and she instantly became like an MTV darling. Everyone wanted to talk to her. Everyone wanted to see what her future was. Here she is all these years later. She's not as prolific as you might think you would want someone to be. She does take 4 or 5 years between albums, but maybe that's quality over quantity. The song here that gets the most attention is Shamika. I know that it has a Grammy nomination. The album itself should be nominated for Album of the Year. It should be, but it's not. It's nominated for like Best Alternative Album of the Year or something like that. However, Fiona herself said she's not too upset about that. She thought the Swifties were going to come after her if it was her versus Tay-Tay. So I've heard comparisons of the growling and yelling that she does sometimes on this album with like Nina Simone. I don't want to go that far. But songs like Heavy Balloon and Newspaper, which rely so heavily on these kind of like structured beats, these like off-kilter beats and these weird kind of noises in the background, I really think it works well. It gives the album that ambiance and that feel. I was talking with my best friend Johnny, and we were talking a little bit about what makes an album great and what makes, like, say, an album like Acid Baths When the Kite String Pops so good. And it's all about ambiance. There's just something, there's a feel, there's an atmosphere, there's noises, there's weird things going on in the background that really drive the album home. And I think Fetch the Bolt Cutters did that better than any album this year. People often were turned off by, like, her album Extraordinary Machine. They loved Idler Wheel. Extraordinary Machine is probably my favorite Fiona Apple album, I'd say, up until this one. And a lot of people don't really agree with that. I know Idler Wheel got quite a bit of support when it came out. I didn't love that album. I still don't. Fiona can really do whatever she wants at this point. She's got a dedicated fan base. She's got the talent to do so. She doesn't have to put it on number 3. Go every 5 years, girl. You do what you want. But Fetch the Bolt Cutters is all about breaking free from something that's been oppressing you, something you've always wanted to do. Just fetch the bolt cutters, cut the chain, and just go for it. And that's, I think, that speaks to everybody. It's not just one gender that can take power from that. I think anyone can take power from that message. The number one album. is so depressing. It's such a depressing album. It's so depressing. It's by the band My Dying Bride. The album is called The Ghost of Orion. It's their 13th album. Singer Aaron Stainthorpe found out before the previous album came out that his 5-year-old daughter was diagnosed with cancer. That's obviously a terrible thing to have to deal with. And luckily, the young lady is in remission now. Complete joy. Also, part of his band left during this period. So there's really a lot of dark elements that Aaron's dealing with here. But for me, a band like this that's put out so many long, slow, plodding, depressing doom albums, how does one stand out? For me, this one does, because you could feel the sorrow in every single chord. You can feel the pain in a lot of what he's singing. And yet, along with that, the album brings growth. The album brings almost like a gratefulness with it. And that's what works for me. The song Tired of Tears, I cannot get enough of that song. You just feel everything that he says in that song. You feel every single chord. You feel every note. I know they have a new drummer because of irreparable drumming differences. I don't know what that means. But there's a song in the middle of this album called The Long Black Land, 10 minutes long. An amazing song as well. Soaring, just wonderful driving parts at the end that really all come together. I feel like the song just wraps itself up in this really beautiful, black, dark, gothic bow at the end. There's just something about this wonderful. And even a weird song like The Solace in the middle. There's a song that's like 5 minutes long almost. It's just like a female vocalist singing over like strings and some guitars in the distance. There's no drums. It's not really going anywhere, but it's perfect for what that part of the album needed. I have every My Dying Bride album, and I know that I'm going to be reaching for this one the most from here on out. I don't know if they're going to top this one. I just know that there's something about it that speaks to me because it feels like a lifelong musician's most dedicated, personal, and honest work. And that's why The Ghost of Orion is just my favorite album of 2020. That's it. Did I miss any? Tell me in the comments. Don't be afraid to like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos this year. I'm very excited about it, so I hope you are too. I'm always looking for suggestions, so send me some things here in the comments. What else should I listen to? What else was on 2020's radar that just maybe slipped past me? But thank you for listening. As always, I hope you enjoy what I had to say, and I hope you love these albums as much as I do. But of course, that's just my opinion, man.